don't quit. It's going to be hard. You may not have that community right away. If this is really what you want, you've got to stick with it. It's about the long game, not the short game. And viral success actually isn't necessarily what you're going for. It's community, to Rob's point. So if you have 100 engaged followers that are enjoying every day, you've built a community of 100 people. If you have 100,000 people and 10 people are engaging every day, that's not really what the goal was.
Welcome back to Beyond the Post with Rob Dunwood and Bodie Grimm. In this episode, we conclude our interview with Ashley Losch from Blue Helmet Media. When you listen or watch, you'll notice something a bit different about this part of our conversation. Ashley asks questions of Bodie and I, and we answer. So sit back as we take you beyond the post for the conclusion of our conversation with Ashley Losch. But yeah, Bodie and I, podcasting is kind of our thing. It's not our only thing, but it is definitely kind of our thing.
Why do you love it?
For me, I like to talk to people, and I brighten up when I feel like there's something that I know that can help someone else and they want to know, and I'm giving that information to them. That is the best thing for me, to explain something to someone and then they can take that and get some type of transformation from it. So for me, where podcasting came in, it was, like I said, going on 20 years ago, back almost at the beginning of podcasting. It's like I started podcasting on June 9th of 2006. So It's been a minute, and I just like getting that information, seeing folks, like their eyes brighten when they get something when you're trying to give it to them. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's what it's always been. And I'm kind of a tech person, so I spend a lot of time talking about tech, but I also like the art of podcasting. So, just when I can explain to folks, it's like, I tell people I'm not any smarter than anyone else. I've just been doing this so long. I have probably tried everything wrong and kept notes. So I may be able to help you get past some things a little bit more quickly than if you were to just go and try it on your own without taking some knowledge from somebody that's been there and done it.
What do you think your biggest misstep was?
It's funny. I just put this on social media probably in the last day or two. I can't say what the biggest is because I started so long ago that podcasting was so brand new.
It's evolved.
Yeah, it's evolved so much. One of the things that I personally wish that I would have done at the beginning was really focused on community, whether it be building an email newsletter, whether it be building a community, but giving the people on the other side of this microphone the opportunity to get back at me and to also get to each other and have conversation with each other. Mm-hmm. For me, it has been, it's efficient. I'm going to say this one time and then let it go out to many people. But I didn't in the beginning give people the opportunity to come back and say, well, what about this? Or what about that? They just had to hope that I would come across those type of questions in the next episode. So for me, I would have, if I could go back and do things over, I would have absolutely focused on definitely setting up an email newsletter, not necessarily even a newsletter, an email list to where I have the ability to send information to people and then they can reply and send stuff back. Newsletter could come down the road. I would also think about potentially setting up some type of community so that it's not just one to many. It can be one to many and then many to one or many to some in the case of Bodie and I. And just giving people the opportunity to have the opportunity to go back and forth. And then I think the most important part about community is not just everyone talks to me, I talk to everyone else, is that when they talk to each other amongst themselves, when you can get people talking about your episode amongst themselves, you know that you've actually got something right there. So those are probably the things I would have done differently, knowing now what I knew then.
Yeah. Interesting. What about you, Bodie?
So I started in the fire service in 2000 as well, but I was just a couple days after you because I was like the first Monday after the millennium turned over. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you know this, everybody, but people in the fire service are mostly troglodytes. So they don't know anything about technology. I came from a technology background. I love talk. Like I was talking about electric cars and hydrogen cars way back when, and I got very little support from my friends in the fire service because they all drive diesel trucks and electric cars will never work. And my wife, who I love dearly and I've been with for married 24 years, together over 30 years, dated in high school. She doesn't want to talk to me about electric cars, and that's my other podcast. So I started a podcast so that I could talk about this stuff to somebody. Like I still have a lot of nerdy friends, and we still have those conversations. But by and large, like I wanted to have like expanded conversations. I wanted people who are really charged up about the topics. And one of the things that I definitely would have done differently now that I know more is I would have reached out to other creators sooner. Because my first, 3-4 years in podcasting, I really did not interact with other creators. And then I got on a show with Rob's buddy Rod and a friend of theirs, Allison Sheridan. And then Allison and I became friends. And then Rod and I, he's been on my show a couple times. And I've had, like, from that interaction, my creator community expanded exponentially. And then Rob and I were on a podcast together, and I reached out to him and I was like, I know you're passionate about this. I'm passionate about like talking about creator stuff too. What do you think about doing a podcast? And I think our first meeting was meant for an hour. And I think we talked for like 3 hours. Like, this is like, whenever Rob and I have a meeting, whatever we schedule it for, you got to double it, because we never stay on topic and we never finish on time. But it's great. Like, I'm an introverted person, but I need to have these external connections, and being able to chat with Rob every week, with very few exceptions. Rob and I have talked every week for the last year. Wow. And about just stuff that we care about. It's a lot of fun, and it's really expanded my world.
Yeah. It's interesting because what you're saying is exactly what I try to create, but on social. And it is that it's the Blue Helmet community. It's, the people that I interact with every day, and I interact with them every single day. And while I don't have a newsletter or email, that's where the DMs come in. I mean, I'm having conversations every single day in that community. And those conversations sometimes start in the comments and move to the DMs, or start in the DMs and move to the comments. I mean, there's so much interacting, and exactly what you were saying, Rob, when people start having conversations within the post, I'm like, yes, this is it. This is what I was hoping for. This was the interaction. This was the support. This was the fun that I wanted to build, because the fire service can feel really lonely, to be honest. And especially when you move into the office and you're on a 40-hour and you're not in the station the way you used to be, and people view you differently, it can be very isolating. So to feel like you can build that community even with strangers, it's really nice. And that's a simple way of saying it, but it just is. It's nice.
Yeah, it really is. And like I said, I wish I would have started doing that day one, because it was like, I probably was a good 6-7 years in. I don't want to say that I didn't care, and I definitely was making connections, right, but I just never thought about, I'm in front of this microphone multiple times a week, just dumping information out there. And I give the people who are listening to it no way to get back at me. Right. I turn comments off on blog posts and stuff like that for things. There's just no way. So it literally would have people who would do investigation and try to figure out, oh, I think this is his email. Let me send this here and see if he responds back. And it was years before somebody finally said, it's like, dude, why don't you give your audience the opportunity to be a community instead of just an audience? And there really is a difference. There definitely is a difference between, people who have come together and have organized themselves around content you've created, or people who just consume it. Like, I go to see concerts for people who I like to listen to their music, but I'm not necessarily their community. I'm not buying T-shirts and, signing up to their membership communities and all that kind of stuff. It's just like, if Janet Jackson comes by, I want to go see Janet Jackson because I like Janet Jackson. That's an audience. But there are some who They want to go to the backstage pass, and they want to get T-shirts, and they want to make sure that they're on the news list to know every time the Janet is coming to a city near them that they are aware so they can get those tickets. That's community, and there's power in that.
Sure. Well, I think it's the difference between talking at somebody and talking with somebody.
You're absolutely right.
So in the beginning, you were talking at them, not in a condescending way, but in a, I want to share all this and let me get it out to you because it's important to me. So it'll be important to you. But then when you realize, hey, we want to tell you what's important to us. And then we want to have a conversation. Now you're talking together, and that's that community. And that's what I think all of us hope for. None of us want to talk at one another, and nobody wants to be talked at to. We all want to engage. This is about connecting. Sounds so cheesy, but that's my tagline. Connection matters. I mean, that's really what this is about. And in the bio, in my Instagram, I'm passionate about building community through social media. And that really came about because I had a post about mental health and the fire service, and somebody DM'd the account. This is when it was the fire department account, and said I was going to kill myself. And I saw this and I didn't. That's really the abridged version. But that moment changed everything for me and how I viewed it. I knew that's what this really is. This is about that connection. It's about the people. And it's about the community. And not everybody's going to be saved by a post, but they might be touched and they might be moved, like you said, Rob, they're believing in something else, right? Their light bulb went off because of something that you said, and that feels good.
It really does. And in your case, if you just get the one person to keep them from making a tragic decision, you've done your job.
Like, you post something, let's just say it's on mental health, and there's a piece in there that you didn't put much thought into, right? Not to say they don't put thought into the post, but you say something. And because this has happened on my show every now and again after a bad call on my other show, I'll actually say, hey, watch your kids around water. We just recently had a 6-year-old drown. Watch your kids around water. Like, it's cooling off. That doesn't mean that we leave the gates open to the pool. Make sure whoever's watching your kids is paying attention to them. And that's what happened in this case. They just didn't pay attention. I'll say something like that, or change your smoke detectors or something, and I'll inevitably get a story around that topic, whether it was somebody related to the person who's emailing me, or it's specific to them. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't, like, listen, I don't feel good when somebody dies, but it does make me feel like I've got a deeper connection with my audience, that they feel comfortable sharing that.
Yeah. Such a gift when they trust you. Yeah. It's, gosh, it means everything. I mean, it means everything. When people trust you enough to divulge things that are hurting them or that have impacted them and that they're likely struggling with, that's such an amazing bond that you've built with them, that they're willing to do that and be vulnerable with you. It's huge.
It is. One of my longtime listeners, well, I won't say that. I don't want to divulge who they are, but one of my longtime listeners, they just randomly emailed me and said, hey, I just want to let you know I'm getting a divorce and I'm going through all these things. And like, it was probably 5, maybe 7 interactions back and forth, but he was clearly like sitting in that pain, and he needed to talk to somebody, and he lives on the other side of the world. Yep. And he felt enough trust in me to just be like, hey, there was other things in there in his email, but obviously the divorce thing was weighing on his mind. And that's what we ended up talking about. And I don't have good answers for that. I've gone through the peer support training to talk with our firefighters. I still don't know. I still don't know what to say. You're not supposed to say, how you doing? But I say it every time. How we doing? We doing okay? Do you guys want ice cream? Like, what, it's like an awkward intro, but you have to, I think for us in the fire service, you have to have those connections before you make that You can pretty much start however you want as long as you have those connections. But if you don't, then you got to maybe start a little more subtle. But with this guy, I was like, I have no idea how to base this conversation on something. So I just subtly asked questions and let him tell me what he wanted to tell me. But it really, like, again, it doesn't feel good, but in a way it is, that's a deep connection. And I like this person a lot, and we do email quite a bit back and forth. But yeah, it's a good thing.
It is. I think intention is so important. And when people feel that you have a positive intention, regardless of your missteps, right? By saying, hey, how we doing? If you want to call it a misstep, they know it's because you genuinely care. And that goes a long way. But to your point, so often it's just listen. It's not about what you say. It's not about your answers. It's about listening, letting them relieve whatever's weighing them down and having a place to put it. And you're that place. You're letting them have a safe space to put down what they've been carrying for a little while, you know? So it's amazing that he did that with you and you were able to be there for him. That means a lot.
It meant a lot to me. And no, I didn't say this to him because I don't want to be weird, because I don't know him that well, you know.
Yeah.
But it did that. And I've had other things, maybe not quite as serious as that, but other things that people have emailed me, and I was just like, this is a good. I'm glad they're reaching out to somebody. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I had a guy the other day tag me in a post. Never miss a sunrise is something that I do a lot in the stories. And that stems from a friend who was diagnosed with cancer. I reached out to him and said, hey, can I sit with you and your wife? I've been through this with some friends. And I know your wife is going to need somebody that's been through it, because she needs to be strong for you, but she needs someone to lean on too. And they were gracious enough to welcome me into their house and let me get close to them and get to know them. And so on the day that he had his surgery, I sat with her at the hospital. And once he was in recovery, we went for a walk, she and I could feel like she took a deep breath, and it was about dusk. And she said, you know, before he went in, he told me, if something happens to me, I don't want you to ever miss a sunrise. And we just cried, of course. And so when I post those in the morning, I tag her. And a guy tagged me the other day with his sunrise. And then he DM'd me and said, you know, my dad passed away last night.
Oh.
And that was the sunrise. What a wonderful thing to trust me with, you know?
Community.
Yeah. Yep.
It's not just people listening to you. It's not just people reading what you write. It's like you probably have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of friends, people who are looking to you on a fairly regular basis to say something that's going to make them smile or put a sparkler in their eye. And you figure that out. So I do want to change gears just a little bit before we wrap.
You don't want to stay in this subject, Rob.
Well, because you know, there are. I would imagine that there are quite a few folks who listen to Bodie and I every week, and the guests that we bring on, who are interested in doing these things that we do. Bodie and I being podcasters and YouTubers and stuff like that. You being a social media person. What would you give as advice to someone who is maybe looking to do something in this space, in this creator space, that's more so than it's just a hobby to where they're just going in there and just posting, but they actually want to maybe make a business, make a side hustle out of it? What advice do you have for someone who is maybe just getting started or who's gotten started and wants to kind of move into that next level?
Well, I'm still trying to move into the next level, so I don't know. But the advice that I have is know your why. Know why you're doing this. Understand who your community is that you're trying to reach. Really knowing those demographics are important, because if you're trying to reach a 65 plus audience and you're on Instagram, you're on the wrong platform, right? So having a general understanding of the platforms that you're trying to engage on as in reference to the demographic that you're trying to reach, and then holding that why really true to you and to your content, and staying true to yourself, because there's going to be hate. So if you don't love your content and you get hate, it's going to be the biggest deterrent. You have to be able to really love your content and stand behind it when you're ready to be controversial and when you're ready to make a difference. Because anytime you're ready to do that, you're going to make waves.
So that leads into another really good question. Rob and I did a whole podcast about this, is dealing with the negativity. How do you deal with it?
In different ways. It depends. Sometimes I give my very favorite response to hate, which is thank you for your insight, or I appreciate you engaging. Those are my favorite hate responses. Sometimes, very rare occasions, I will make a post about it because it is that deeply impactful for not just me, but for the community. I had a recent comment on a post that was very hateful, really angry, a lot towards towards women in the fire service in general. And simultaneously, I had a dad reach out to me that said, my daughter loves your content. Would you consider reaching out or posting something and tagging her and talking to her? And it was like, if I ignore this hate that's happening and this anger, and then I post to this little girl, it feels really disingenuous to all of that. So I put a post up that just said, your words have an impact, and God forbid some little girl decides she's not good enough to be a firefighter because of something that you said or you implied, and she went a different way. That would be tragic, because firefighting is such an incredible gift of a career. And if you did that to her, that would be awful. And what if you did that to your own daughter? Right? So sometimes I try to use my voice to combat the hate, and sometimes it's good just to be quiet.
Do you think being in the fire service for 20 plus years has thickened your skin? Because there's no way. Like, you will make the smallest mistake at a fire and somebody will roast you for it afterwards. We're awful to each other with love.
It's grain of salt, right? Yes, thickened my skin. Absolutely. My mom has told me I'm dead inside and that I have no empathy.
My wife says the same thing.
Yeah. And it's probably true. The fact is, I've been thinking about this recently, this idea of the detachment that we have, and that we have to disassociate on calls. We do for survival. There's no way that we don't all have some disassociation. We have to. You cannot do this career for 20, 25 years and be affected by all of these people, right? So thick skin for sure. Not as much on fires as the day-to-day, because I'm a mess. I fall down. I walk into walls. I do silly things. You scare me, I'm going to fall down, pass out, punch you in the face. Like, you just don't know. So, yeah, I had to grow some thick skin because I was going to do some stupid stuff in front of these guys because you live with them. So I'm bound to do silly things that they're going to make fun of me for. And some of it sticks with you and some of it you just let roll off your back.
Yeah, that's true. If I could tell on myself a little bit, we had this monster first alarm fire. It was hot. It was like 2 weeks ago. It was hot. And it was a hoarder house. We were hitting it from the outside. We were the part of the first alarm package. So we were like pretty far back into it, and it was still going. And walking around this house, there's like this big hole next to the patio. So I'm like, well, I obviously don't want to step in this big hole. We've been flowing a bunch of water. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to step on this patio, which has decorative pieces on it, which is weird anyway. It's a concrete patio, and then they put these decorative pieces on. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to step on the decorative piece, and there's a bunch of different crews there from a bunch of different departments, and it's in the back of the house, and there's just a ridiculous amount of people in the back of the house. I step on this decorative piece, and it gives way because I'm my body weight plus 100 pounds in gear.
Right.
It gives way, and I'm moved up to captain, and so I'm supposed to have some sort of authority. I step
Wearing
on
that
this
red helmet.
yeah, and it just kind of collapses underneath me, and I slowly fell into this hole. And it felt like it took 5 minutes, and I could see as I'm falling. I got my mask on, I got my helmet on. You're limited view, but I swear I could see every single person's eyes at that moment as I just like a feather falling from the sky, fall into this hole and come out covered in mud. Like I was like, this sucks.
You're like, I hope the PIO is getting a video of this right now.
Yeah, I was like, where's the drone? Where's the drone?
Yeah.
Hopefully
I
he
had
went home.
one similar in front of a house fire, and you're walking the hose out. For anyone that doesn't know, you have to walk all the water out of the hose before we put it back on the truck. But I had to drain the nozzle first, and I don't know why. I was like, I will water this mud/grass versus opening the nozzle on the sidewalk. And the engineer and my other firefighter are watching me do this. And I open it up thinking there's no pressure in it, and it sprays the mud all over me. I mean, similar to probably what you look like getting out of that hole, but just mud everywhere. And I look, and they're they're literally on the ground laughing so hard they can't believe it. They're like, how stupid are you? And I was like, very stupid is how I am. Very stupid. Can you wash me off, please, now? Like, we just do it. It's human. We're human, and we make silly decisions in the moment. But thank God there's someone there to witness it so that they can remember it forever.
Yeah. You got to own it. You just own it. You love it. Own it.
That's who I am.
I think we're about up on our time, Ashley. I honestly, I feel like I could go for another hour easily. But if you had like parting words for anybody getting into this about all the things we've discussed and maybe some of the things we haven't discussed, what are those parting words? Because I think this is one of my favorite interviews so far. So,
parting words: just don't quit. It's going to be hard. You may not have that community right away. If this is really what you want, you've got to stick with it. It's about the long game, not the short game. And viral success actually isn't necessarily what you're going for. It's community, to Rob's point. So if you have 100 engaged followers that are enjoying every day, you've built a community of 100 people. If you have 100,000 people and 10 people are engaging every day, that's not really what the goal was.
Not at all.
So, hustle.
Yeah. I regularly tell people, it's like, I only have like 374 people who are listening to me. It's like, that's like a comedy club being filled up every time you record.
Huge.
And I often will send a picture of what 500 people sitting in the stadium looks like, because people don't realize how many people 500 people are.
Right.
So if you're putting content out that's not getting 100,000 or 10,000 or even 1,000, if you're sending something out that gets 374 people when you send something out that see it and actually interact and do something with it, you literally are selling out a mid-sized comedy club when you do that.
I love that. That's a great analogy.
I think that's the best way to end it. So, Ashley, thank you very much for coming on and sharing your experiences with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I really
it's been
enjoyed
an
it.
absolute blast having you on. I'm with Bodie. Like, I love all of our interviews. This one is sticking out to me right now, but probably because we're in it. But no, this is very good. It's the first time that I think that we've been asked questions to answer on our show, which is interesting. True. I took note of that. It's like, that's different. I wasn't necessarily ready for that, but hopefully I didn't stumble over myself.
You didn't. Yeah, thank you. I think we're building a community, and I'm curious about you, and that's what you were saying, Rob, before. You're curious about people. You're curious about what they think and feel and what they want to know, and I am too. And that's what this is about. Bodie, you were like, I didn't reach out to creators. I didn't build that community. It was like I immediately reached out to my PIO friends and made PIO friends and was like, help me, because I don't know. And then when I was really pushing the envelope, I'm sending stuff to them like, is this too far? What do you think? Am I going to get in trouble for this one? Is it worth trying? And then just begging for forgiveness, right? And that's so big. That's so big. Because there's very few people in this space. While it feels like there's a million people in this space, there's very few people that this is their passion and this is what they do and it matters to them. And connecting with those people for guidance it's so good. So thank you for letting me ask you questions, and thank you for letting me be curious about you.
Ashley, before we let you go, can you give us 20, 30 seconds on how folks can get at you over at Blue Helmet Media? In your own words, just tell people what Blue Helmet Media is and why they should come check you out if they're interested in your services.
Sure. So I have a website, Blue Helmet Media, or it's bluehelmet.com. Sorry. I always forget, is it bluehelmet.com or bluehelmetmedia.com, because one was $29,000 and one was $29.99. So I was like, I will take the $29.99, please. Also, the reason that Blue Helmet is blue with no E was the E was too expensive. So I had to drop it. But certainly checking me out on Instagram or on TikTok. That's where you'll find the content, and then check out the website. And you can always email me at bluehelmetmedia@gmail.com.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.